Hello everyone, we've got a great video today talking about the pros and cons of what it is like living in Peoria, Arizona, to see if this is going to be a good city or not for you to be moving to. There are definitely some pros and definitely some cons about Peoria that I think you should know if you're considering moving to Peoria or live in Phoenix and might be relocating from one city to another, to see what are really the best and worst parts about living in Peoria. And I think this is going to be a helpful video to help decide if those cons are going to outweigh the pros or if the pros are going to outweigh the cons. So we'll definitely get into it right now. And pro number one, and I think probably the best part about Peoria, that I love about Peoria, that I recommend to a lot of my clients in Peoria, is the neighborhoods. It really does have some really great neighborhoods that tend to be fairly family focused and tend to have lower crime rates as well. They have schools within inside of them. They've got, everything you're kind of looking for in a neighborhood. They're mostly master planned communities that I'm talking about, where they got parks, they got sidewalks, they've got well-kept front yards. Some of them will have mountain views and things like that. Really, some of the top neighborhoods in Peoria are going to be somewhere like Fletcher Heights, the Meadows, Vistancia. There's a few others out there as well that are all going to be master planned communities that are highly recommended, that people are looking to move into. So I think that's really a big pro about Peoria, is the neighborhoods that they offer. They tend to be more modern, the newer styles. The homes have a nice look to them on the outside. So that's definitely what I would say is pro number one, and probably the main reason that I'm seeing people move to Peoria is just the type of home you can get in that type of community. Now, con number one is going to be the lack of entertainment in Peoria. Since it's more focused on its suburbs, more focused on, I guess, the communities, it doesn't specialize in the actual entertainment, especially when you compare it to the rest of the Phoenix area and the entertainment that places like Phoenix and Scottsdale and Tempe, or even places like Chandler and Glendale, all of them have more entertainment in terms of the nightlife, in terms of having concert venues, in terms of having kind of larger shopping centers with tons of restaurants nearby. There's not much of that in Peoria. There's maybe one location right at the P83 area, which is somewhat popular, but definitely not the scale of any of those. For the most part, if you're going out to, you want to see your favorite band play in a concert, or you're going to go to some new restaurant or something like that, it's probably not going to be in Peoria. It lacks in the entertainment. It's not like it's got nothing to do over there, but definitely if you're going on some sort of big date night, you're probably leaving Peoria for that for the most part. Now, on the flip side of that, it does have some good family-friendly things that I would say this is pro number two, and that it has some of the kind of amenities that people are looking for in terms of a city when it comes to family lifestyle. And sure, non-families are going to love this as well. Single people, retired people do enjoy these as well, but it has things like really nice parks. It's got Lake Pleasant in it, which is the largest lake near Phoenix, really the only lake near Phoenix when we're talking about at the outskirts of the Phoenix area. There's a massive lake in North Peoria, and it has the Rio Vista Center. So those three things, they're kind of amenities to the city of Peoria, and Pioneer Park is a massive park inside of Peoria that it's got a lake in it. It has baseball fields, softball fields, basketball courts, a big dog park, splash pads. You can fish in the lake. There's a few different parks like that. The Rio Vista Center has one as well. And the Rio Vista Center is an amenity to the residents of Peoria. Technically, anyone could join, but Peoria residents get a big discount, where it's kind of this huge community center where it's got things like a rock climbing wall. It's got a fitness center. It's got basketball courts on the inside. If you got kids playing sports, they're probably playing there for something or another. They've got a huge skate park on the outside, and it also has this kind of cool pond area. So it's just a cool amenity to the city of Peoria. And then Lake Pleasant also is a massive lake, like I talked about, where you can do everything you want to do in a lake. It's got boating. You can go swim in it. You can go cliff jumping into it. They've got some cool things throughout the year where they've got a massive water slide and things like that. So all those kind of put together are really like the amenities of Peoria. They're not necessarily that big nightlife entertainment, but families for like a one-off day thing, or if you're going to the Rio Vista Center on a daily basis, to me that's a big pro to Peoria to have those right inside your city. And then con number two is probably going to be its location. Not that Peoria's location is the worst. It's not on the farthest outskirts of any town in Phoenix, but in terms of, especially if you're living in the northern section of Peoria, where some of the better communities are, in my opinion, where some of the newer communities are, like those ones I mentioned originally, they're going to be pretty far from the best things to do in terms of Phoenix, the airport, going to downtown Scottsdale. You're probably going to be at least 45 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, depending on where you are. So that northern section Peoria, which tends to be the most popular, is somewhat separated from the rest of the city when it comes to being centralized. So especially if you work in downtown Phoenix or work over in Scottsdale, North Peoria is probably going to be a little bit too far a drive for many people to actually want to be moving there. And so yeah, I definitely think it being a little bit more on the outskirts, especially that northern section, probably going to be a con for some people. Now, the southern section of Peoria is fairly central. You're probably only 25 minutes to downtown without any traffic, and probably a little bit farther, 40 minutes to downtown Scottsdale, just because it's on the exact opposite end of the valley there. But that southern Scottsdale section is definitely more obtainable if you do work in downtown and still want to live in Peoria. The only downside is that southern section, not that it's a bad place to live, it's just you're not getting some of those higher end communities like I mentioned. You're getting some of the older homes built in the 70s and 80s, no HOA, so it's a little bit hit or miss how well maintained it is. But still a nice place to live, but not as popular as some of those more northern Peoria areas. Pro number 3 is going to be the safety in Peoria, and a big reason why we are seeing people want to move into Peoria is because it has a lower crime rate than most of the surrounding cities. So places like Phoenix, places like Tempe, Glendale, Goodyear, Tolleson, Avondale, all those places somewhat near to Peoria. Peoria has a lower crime rate, and it has a similar crime rate to very popular cities like Chandler, like Gilbert, like Surprise. Peoria is in that range of the lower crime rates. This is according to neighborhoodscout.com, and it kind of shows a heat map of where are the higher crime rate areas and where are the lower crime rate areas. And if you look on that heat map, Peoria very similar to some of the places that are more famous for having low crime rates, like a place like Chandler. Peoria is on a similar level to them. And so when you couple that with some great neighborhoods, you can see why people are wanting to move into Peoria. Now, con number 3 could be a little bit argumentative depending on who you are talking to, but I would say that Peoria definitely lacks in the restaurant category. Now, they are making some improvements, but overall, the restaurant scene in Peoria to me is a little bit minimal. They don't have tons and tons of options, although it is growing. But when you're thinking of like the best restaurants in the Phoenix area, you look up a list of top 10, top 20 restaurants in Phoenix area, there's probably not going to be any options in Peoria. Probably 3/4 of them are going to be in Scottsdale, and 1/4 of them are going to be in central Phoenix, maybe some in Peoria, maybe 1 or 2 in Chandler, Gilbert. Some places might hit that. But in general, Peoria is probably not going to make that list at all. Now, there are some restaurants that I personally do love in Peoria. We love Fabio on Fire, which is a local Italian place. They've got Thunderbirds, which is a nice restaurant. They also got some nicer steakhouses like Bourbon and Bones just opened, and Arrowhead Grill, and they actually also opened, which this is going to be a big pro in my opinion. They've got 3 new restaurants right next to their spring training field with Postino's, Blanco's Tacos and Tequila, and North Italia, which are all 3 kind of nicer restaurants which are mostly in the Central and East Valley. In Scottsdale and Phoenix, you see most of those restaurants, and now they're popping up in Peoria. So it is starting to get a better restaurant scene, but still, my favorite restaurants in the Phoenix area, they're not in Peoria. They're in Central Phoenix and Scottsdale. So if my wife and I are going to, a nice date night, an anniversary, a birthday, or something like that, we're probably going over to Scottsdale or Central Phoenix, something like that, to go to some of our best restaurants here in the Phoenix area. So I do think it lacks the restaurant scene. Although it is improving, it's still something I'd like to see some better restaurants pop up over there. And the last pro I want to talk about is just the overall newness to Peoria, especially if you get anywhere from Central to North Peoria. Overall, it just has a newer feel to the city, especially compared to the city right next to it, Glendale and Phoenix as well. They tend to be a little bit older. Everything's kind of either 60s to 90s maybe is where everything is built, and that's homes, that's the developments, that's the shopping centers. All those are a little bit older. Peoria is the opposite. I mean, even the business centers, the shopping tracks of a bunch of offices, they look nice and they look newer. They're well maintained. They've got a little bit more modern of a feel to it. Of course, the communities, they're going to be newer, so they're going to be more modern. But overall, Peoria just has a newer feel to it, which is just, a little bit more enjoyable. It doesn't feel old as you're driving through it, where some cities definitely do feel that way. So I think that newness attracts a lot of people. If you just simply drive around Peoria versus driving around some of the similar cities nearby, it's just going to feel a little bit nicer because everything is newer in it. So I think that's a big pro. When you got newer restaurants, you got newer shopping centers, it just has a better feel to the city itself for something that's built, 60, 70 years ago. So that's kind of my best pros and cons. It's a pretty quick video, but this is just my honest opinion of what are the pros and cons of Peoria. I think those cons are real and definitely something to consider. To me, most of those aren't like make or break things, but obviously if you've got a job in downtown Scottsdale, Peoria is not going to be the best spot for you. If you're a young single that wants to be in the middle of the nightlife and wants to meet new people all the time, Peoria is probably not as good good of an option as a place like downtown Tempe or downtown Scottsdale or downtown Phoenix. All those places are going to be probably a better fit for someone like that. So there's definitely some cons to consider if you're thinking of moving into Peoria, but also some great pros that I think make Peoria a great place to live. So yeah, I am a realtor here in the Phoenix area. I do specialize, in the West Valley in Peoria. If you're thinking of moving into Peoria or Phoenix at all, I would love to help out. My email number on the screen. And if you're confused at all about this whole moving process, all the different cities in Phoenix, I created this totally free moving to Phoenix guide. Just email me, I'll send it to you. It's kind of everything I wish I knew before I moved to Phoenix. So just reach out to me, I'll send that over. I think it's really helpful, especially if you don't know much about the Phoenix area. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos about living in Phoenix.